Here we are again, ready to read Chapter 9 in the Vanishing Coin. Please make sure that you've got a book, a place to sit, and you're open and ready for Chapter 9 on page 114. Pause the video if you are not prepared. Chapter 9, Taking Notes. Mrs. Canfield needs at least 10 note cards by the end of the day tomorrow, Mike's mom said, or she'll take 10 points off your grade. She sighed and crossed her arms. This wasn't the plan, Mike. I thought you were trying to get off to a good start this year. Mike had that hopeless feeling that he'd had outside the principal's office. No matter how hard he tried, he could never do anything right. He wished Nora would go home before he had a full-on fight with his mom. But Nora totally saved him. I know what the assignment is, she assured Mike's mom. I think I can help. It was like she was working some magic of her own. Before Mike knew it, his mom was walking back down the stairs, completely trusting that the note cards would be done. Mike was as shocked as he'd been when he walked into the back room at the White Rabbit. He wanted to do his report on the Book of Secrets, but Nora stared at him when he suggested it. No, that won't work, she said. The school library opens early. You need to get something there. Mike didn't like her bossy tone, but they were partners now. Mike's dad drove them to school the next morning. It was so early that the parking lot was empty and a custodian was polishing the floors. Mike's dad dropped them off, and within 10 minutes, Nora found Mike a short book about Houdini. She showed Mike how to take notes on the index cards, too. 1 idea per card, Nora explained. Pretty simple, she said. When you're all done with these notes, you'll type them into a computer and write the report. That's what her class was doing anyway. Mike had a hard time keeping focused on the cards, though. Houdini was awesome. Nobody could figure out how he did any of his famous tricks. And he did some pretty amazing stunts, too. Like locking himself up in a trunk and having people throw it off a bridge. Somehow, he always managed to get away. By the time the bell rang, Mike had actually read a big part of the book. Now he just had to go back and finish the notes before the end of the day. He didn't want to lose 10 points, or the privilege of going to his friend's soccer game. Mike already knew he'd be spending recess in the principal's office. He sat in his usual chair in front of Mrs. Warren. You're working hard, she said approvingly as he spread note cards all over the place. She slipped him a lollipop, too. Before he went back to Miss Canfield's room, Mike stopped in the hallway for a drink of water. He could feel somebody watching him while his face was in the fountain. Jackson, of course. So when am I getting my money back? He said with a sneer. You'll see, said Mike. He was trying to sound mysterious, not mocking, but Jackson took it the wrong way. Is that right? Well, you'll see this. He ripped the note cards out of Mike's hands. Looks like some homework to me, he said. Late again, big guy? Hey, maybe magic will help you get these back. Jackson crumpled them up and stuffed them in his jeans pocket. Then he got swept up in a group of second graders on their way outside. Mike almost crumpled too. There was no way Mrs. Canfield would believe what happened, and he didn't even want to know what his parents would say. So what was he supposed to do? During silent reading time, he opened the Houdini book and rewrote as many note cards as he could remember. Then he did a couple more to get to 10. He had to get to that game. He and Nora had a plan for getting back at Jackson, and now it was more important than ever. When Mrs. Canfield met his eye, Mike looked away, but she didn't say anything. He wasn't supposed to be taking notes during silent reading. Maybe she really meant it when she said she was on Mike's side. Mike finally handed in the note cards just before the bell, and Mrs. Canfield smiled. I knew you could do it, she said. Tomorrow you can get started on your report. Did magicians grant wishes, Mike wondered. He really wished that the report would write itself, and that Jackson would get what he deserved someday. Their arrangements after school were complicated. Mike walked to Nora's house, and Nora's mom took them to the soccer game. She had to leave them there alone, though, because it was her night to work late. Coach Larson, Zach's dad, would keep an eye on Mike and Nora during the game. Then, when it was all over, Mike's dad would take them home. Mike even had his library book, the one with the sports facts, to slip into the library slot on their way back. Mike found Coach Larson standing on the sidelines with a clipboard. This is my next door neighbor, Nora, Mike told the coach. She's new in town, and she loves soccer, but she missed the deadline for signing up. I happen to know that one of the girls' teams is down a player, Coach Larson told Nora. A goalie. Maybe you could take her place? I need to look into it. Nora beamed. That's my favorite position, she said. Let me know what you find out. Coach Larson tapped the brim of Mike's baseball cap. We miss you, buddy. It's just not the same without you. Mike was glad to be missed. For a minute, he even wished he was playing. Then he remembered the Book of Secrets and his excitement at learning all its mysteries. Maybe next year, he told the coach. Whether they won or lost, Coach Larson's team had always had a good time. He made his team run backwards and do jumping jacks before the game. On the other side of the field, Jackson's team in blue jerseys was huddled together. Jackson broke away from his team and paced along the edge of the field. He hates to lose, Mike whispered to Nora. Looks like his whole team is pretty intense. Jackson glared at Mike and Nora when he spotted them in the bleachers. Then he came up to them during a water break. Got my quarter, man? He said. I could use some money for the snack shack. Mike turned his pockets inside out. I'm broke, he said. What'd you spend my money on? Some new note cards? His laugh was more like a crackle. His coach called him back. Jackson, he said sharply, you're going in. Things didn't go well for Jackson in the game. Charlie stole the ball from him and scored. Jackson shot 3 times, but he kept missing the goal. At the next break, he found Mike and started in on him again. If you don't give me my money back, you know what? I'm calling the police. Like the police would care about a missing quarter. Jackson was losing his cool. Now it was time to move in on him with some magic. Mike hoped he and Nora could pull it off, even though they'd barely practiced. Fine, he said, like it was killing him. I'll give it back. About time, said Jackson. Mike's pockets were empty, as Jackson had seen. Do you have a quarter, Nora? He asked her. She was expecting the question. Nora handed him a $5 bill. Sorry, I don't have anything smaller, she said. Jackson's eyes grew wide. Was that all for him? Mike held up the 5 to show Jackson. Before Jackson could reach for it, Mike folded it in half from left to right. Then he folded it in half again. What is this, origami? Jackson said. Mike did one more fold, this time from top to bottom, toward himself. Then slowly, he shook a quarter out of the $5 bill. Ta-da! Said Mike. This is yours, right? I made a little change. Jackson's eyes were wide. Where did that come from? He said. How'd you do that? That was $5. Mike handed it to him. Take it. It's yours. Jackson took a step back. It's not my quarter. Just as he had conjured a quarter, Mike had suddenly conjured a braver self. Take it or leave it, Jackson, Mike said firmly. He pressed the coin into Jackson's hand. Got what you asked for, Mike pointed out. 25 cents. That's what we bet on. But not like that, Jackson sputtered. Just then his coach blew his whistle. Jackson was back in the game. Nora called after him. Don't spend it all in one place. And if you have time, there's how we did it. I'll see you next time for Chapter 10, which is our last chapter.